Hello and welcome again to Backpage. I'm Jody C. and today we're visiting with Jaki Fey about her children's book, and it's called The Last Goose Concert. So welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Jody.
Tell me about this story. There's always a genesis for every story that comes our way.
Well, this story is about a little girl put into a position of responsibility, unfair position for a child before she's...
And she's how old?
She's about, I think she's around 8.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and then she's put into this situation of responsibility, and really she's not prepared for it. And then the story is how her survival, how she grows and how she survives, and becomes a hero in the end. And I'm of the opinion that all children that survive their childhood become our heroes. So
Well,
that's what I mean.
good. And the other thing that in children's stories, there's always there's a moral of the story, but there's also a lesson, something that they learn about, and they learned about geese migration in this one.
Oh, yes.
You know, I mean, did I just tell you something that you didn't know
Yeah,
about
that's
your own
right.
story? So, and this is your first published book?
Yes. I have one that's ready to go that my publisher had accepted, and then we're still waiting on the illustrations. And so they said, "Do you have anything else ready?" And I said, "Well, I have this one." And so they decided to publish it. And so this will be the first.
Oh, good. So what are you doing to promote your book besides showing up on television?
Pretty much that's
it?
That's it, except for I went to a school, and there's the little girl that posed for the pictures, goes to the school close to where we live.
Okay.
And so at the school they're very interested because she's a student there.
Well, it's interesting to me because the drawings, the illustrations were done by Dana Hubenthal, who's a very fine artist, but they look like they were taken from photographs. I mean, and so they actually were.
They actually were.
So what was that process like? You took pictures and then you colorized them, or what?
Well, we took pictures of the child, and then a lot of the pictures we just went out to parks and areas and took pictures of like big rocks for the rock wall, and then I was in Norway, so I took pictures of at the museum where the old Norwegian cabins and homes were, and so she used those as a basis.
Well, it's a really interesting technique, and like this one of the bear, who turned out to be not such a trustworthy guy.
Yeah.
But
He kind of reminds me of my. I didn't realize this, but when people were reading it in my family, they said, "Oh my goodness, that's your dad, isn't it?" And I went, "What?" I said, "Oh yeah, I guess it was."
Well, his name wasn't Bernard, was it?
No.
Okay.
No.
Anyway, well, that's. I mean, you always learn something. You always.
Yeah.
A friend of mine in Dallas is a illustrator for children's books.
Oh yeah.
And she said to me one time, all you need for a successful children's book is to be able to share a perfect, pure piece of your heart.
Oh, that's a good.
You know?
Yes, right.
So when you're writing, I mean, the other thing that you wrote, is that a children's book also, or are you?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And it's kind of the same thread that children are put into. I had a childhood that was a little bit maybe not as loving and caretaking as it could have been, and so I think that's the little thing that I'm writing about, children that have to survive and learn how to become adults pretty much on their own a lot of times, and so that other one's the minute.
So you stepped up to the plate, even though you might not have been ready to.
Yes.
It's because you had to.
Right.
Okay.
And so that's kind of, I think, well, I didn't realize that when I started writing, but my publisher pointed it out that that's kind of a thread. And so the little girl in the last Goose concert is her little journey into. But then I like to add a little fun, little excitement maybe, and a little to make it so it's more interesting. It's a story that maybe is teaching this consciously or unconsciously, and parents. I guess the audiences I'm looking for are the parents that want to provide this story for their children to learn how to, like you say, step up to the bat, become, help them to become adults.
So, who else in your family read this? I mean, did your sisters read this book and think,
yes.
"Oh, that's Dad"?
Oh, my sisters and my sister. And my publisher also pointed out that Gayla the Goose in this story is probably my sister. Patterned after my sister. You know, all this stuff comes up when you're writing
Right.
a lot of times.
Yeah.
And because I was the oldest, and so I kind of took care of her. And
How much older were you?
2 years and 9 months.
So not
But
much.
not much, but
Yeah.
I felt like she wasn't maybe getting the mothering that she needed or so. And so I felt like I was in a position, although nobody told me that, but I felt like I
Yeah.
to be her
Yeah.
caretaker. So.
Hey, if you're just tuning in, I'm Jody C., and this program is Backpage, and we're visiting with Jaki Fey about her book, The Last Goose Concert. So now, when you sat down to write, I mean, in writing, there's always a lot that you have to wind up sloughing off,
That's for sure.
which I don't know about you, but I hate that part because,
Yeah.
you know, I'm always
Because
like,
sometimes you fall in love with your lines.
oh yeah,
And you
like,
say,
that's my favorite part.
oh, yeah, that's good. Why am I?
But at least in theory, your publisher knows best.
Yes.
You know, so
That's right.
so how long did it take you to put it all together? And did you have a storyline, and did you follow that, or did it shoot off in different directions?
Well, altogether, it took me a long time, like 3 or 4 years, because it started to be a story of. I just saw these goose flying one day, and I thought, oh, that'd be kind of cute to talk about goose, and then the geese's, and then I kind of liked to put a little different spin on how they how they learned how to fly and to migrate, and then all of a sudden I had this little child in here, and so it just kind of took off. It just kind of, they just became best friends, and pretty soon it was just kind of writing itself in a way. I have a hard time with the beginnings, but then once you get into it, it just kind of.
Yeah, I thought that I would have trouble with the ending because, I mean,
Right,
wrapping
that's
up a story, because once I'm into it, I want to keep going and
Right,
writing
right.
forever. And that's how you wind up with a manuscript that's this
Yes,
big,
right.
and you're the only one who thinks it's swell.
Yeah.
But in truth, for me, well, I used to write commercials when I worked in rock and roll radio.
Oh, yes.
And if it was a funny commercial that I was writing, I would start off with the punchline
Oh, yes.
and work backwards
Oh,
into
that's,
the.
yes.
And so the endings aren't much of a problem. As long as I know how it's going to end,
Right.
I can get there in a number of ways.
Yes, and like in this book, I think probably I rewrote the beginning 25, 50 times. And it's because I think at the beginning I'm trying to get everything, say everything at once. And then I go, after I do the whole story, then I have to simplify it and simplify it. So the ending isn't in my writing. Unlike you, I don't have to do that. But maybe your idea is maybe I should start from the end, and then write forward. That I wouldn't have to.
If you know what it's going to be,
Yeah,
and then
that's true.
and you make sure everything in the story takes you that way.
That's right.
You know.
You're smart, girl.
Yeah. Smarter than I look, and thank goodness for that.
Oh, no, that's not true.
Where did this take place?
Well,
I mean, I thought of like Finland or
yeah,
Norway or
yeah.
someplace.
I was kind of thinking along that way,
Yeah.
in the Scandinavian someplace. That's where I was thinking that it took place. But it's kind of like, any of those, where the tundras are and the and up above the Arctic, or right around the Arctic Circle, and so that was.
Yeah, well, you did a good job, and you did and Dana Hubenthal did a really good job on the illustrations too.
Yeah, thank
So, are you going to do the other book? Are you going to do it the same way? The illustrations use the same artist, or what are you going to do?
The other art, no, I have a different artist for that, and that's what has been. It's been like 2 years, since the artist started the work. So that's kind of why.
What, you contracted with the artist for what? Have all your illustrations done by a certain date?
Right.
And then we'll pay you this amount of money?
Yes, right.
Okay. And so the date came and went?
Yes.
And I hope you didn't pay the artist?
No.
Okay, good. Whew. All right.
I know.
Then I would understand why your daughter said, this contract is not a good one.
I know, she said. Yes, she had a little bit of a. And so now, definitely, I just listen to my publisher. Just don't be.
Well, with some of the contracts that you look at, I mean, they might as well be written in Farsi.
Isn't that the truth?
It could be in a Rocky textbook for all I know.
I know.
I'm like,
Yeah, I know. That's right.
The party of the first part, otherwise known as sucker,
That's right.
agrees to give everything to the party of the second part, otherwise known as weasel. And I go, yeah, okay.
That's right. I'll sign that because I want to get my book published.
That's right. Oh, gee. You like to travel.
Oh, yes.
Tell me all the places you've been.
Oh, I've been, I've been all over Europe and New Zealand and China and Japan. And and I think that's like getting back to the book is that I've learned that through all this travel and through anthropology that different cultures, all cultures from forever have used stories to teach children. And so I think that's one of the things through my travels. I've learned all the different ways that stories have helped children grow into has been their education. And so even in the Western civilization, we have schools and we have the sciences and we have this. But I think as a writer and some of these children books that we need these stories to, along with a little bit of fun, is to teach them that there are monsters out there in the world, and that but those monsters can be overcome. And I think through our stories like this book, but I think like the old fairy tales used to teach these these facts to children, and I kind of like to carry on that tradition a little bit too.
Did you ever see? There was it was a little monster with his own pillow named, and it had the monster's name was Dennis, and you could buy him for your little kid.
Oh. And
so they could make friends with the monster.
Right, yeah.
Instead of worrying about him living under the bed and going to get your foot when your foot hits the floor. So, hey, if you're just tuning in, I'm Jody C., and this is Back Page, and we're talking with Jaki Fey about her children's book, The Last Goose Concert. So now, give me a quick synopsis of the new book that's not been published, that we're waiting on the illustrator to
Okay, well,
catch fire.
it's called Wolf in My Pocket. And this story is a little darker than this. This story is much lighter than that one. And it's about an orphan child that has to be, and it's back also in a time probably when the animals and everybody spoke the same language, you know. And her mother leaves her, and she has to grow up in this village. And the village people do not really like her that much, and then they send her away, and she has to have her journey, and her mother left her with a little wooden wolf put in her pocket.
So that's her talisman?
That's her talisman, and then she has adventure, and the wolf ends up helping when she needs to be.
So the wolf springs to life somehow?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's very scary, but he's also very, he really does help her too.
So he's a scary wolf, but a good wolf.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's not so bad. That's not a dark story.
Well, it's not that bad, but it's a little tiny bit. Some people think it's dark.
Well, you know, when I first started reading this, and I was thinking Finland. I don't know why, but I was watching a thing on 60 Minutes one time about Finland. You know, and of the Scandinavian countries, it's kind of like the redheaded stepchild.
Yes.
You know.
Right.
And there's a very high rate of alcoholism.
Yes.
And it's dark a large part of the year.
Yes.
And they're shy.
Yes.
And what they talked about and show them walking down the street toward each other, and they wouldn't even look at each other. They couldn't somehow, you know. And so, but what had overtaken Finland was the tango.
Oh my
People
goodness.
were doing the tango, and like everywhere, it showed them in parks, and they're all tangoing around.
Right.
And they would go on their lunch breaks from work to these dance places, and the good part was they would ring a buzzer and it would light up male or female, so whoever it lit up had to go ask the others to dance. And so it took the pressure off of asking on your own and the possibility of being rejected. You know,
right.
It's like,
cool.
They told me to.
Yeah.
And so Morley Safer was talking about with this guy who was an historian and poet and a writer, and he was kind of a joyful man. He didn't look like most Finns.
Right.
He just had a sparkle in his eye. And Morley Safer said, so what are these songs like that you write and your poetry? What's it about? And the man said, oh, you know, it's usually the same. It's about a girl who left you and broke your heart. And it's been almost 20 years now, and you're almost certain she's not coming back. So,
that's great.
Anyway, so when I looked at these drawings, I thought, Finland,
yeah.
You know, or
That's strange that you put that in, because in my next book, Wolf in Her Pocket, when this village does not allow dancing, singing, smiling, laughing.
Wow.
So she has to, in order for her to survive in that village, so they will keep her, she has to really work hard, and she cannot break those rules. And it's really interesting you brought that up about Finland.
But does she want to stay there?
She doesn't want to, but she's a very young child, and she has no choice, because otherwise she won't survive. And then it's her journey, how she grows, and then finally she breaks one too many rules, and then she's out.
Wow. So she's banished?
So she's banished.
And then,
but she comes back.
Wow. Get this one finished. This will be interesting to read.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to ask this as a personal question, though, but did your mother abandon the family when you were a child?
She didn't abandon the family. and she did the best she could, but she just wasn't. She wasn't really there. You know, I mean, she made sure we ate, and she fed us, and and you know, we got clothing, but it wasn't. It just wasn't very nurturing. I remember one time when I was quite young that I was just taking a walk, and it was just twilight. You know, it was getting dark, and people starting to turn their lights on in their homes. And as I walked by, I'd look into the window, and I'd think, oh, they just look so happy and warm and cozy in there. And then I got thinking as an adult, why would I think that if I didn't have that in my own home? You know, so it's. But I mean, and she was. I mean, she didn't beat us or anything, but it was just.
Maybe she was just overwhelmed by.
She was
motherhood.
Now that I've had some counseling and this type of thing. Now I understand, and I have, you know, but I know that she did the best she could.
Yeah.
And.
Well, how many of you were there? How many
just
children?
Just the two of us.
So there are 2 kids, but then you had, your dad was like Bernard the bear.
Yes. He was a little bit of, I called him a con art. I mean,
yeah.
He's definitely.
So she had to deal with that.
Oh, yeah.
And try to raise children as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
And pretty much, and especially in that day, you know, men weren't as involved as they are in raising children. They didn't take, I mean, they brought home the bacon, but they didn't really.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he was gone working a lot and this type of thing. So.
What did he do?
He did a lot of things, but during the Second World War, he built ships.
Okay.
And so I was into that. I was really into the Second World War as a little girl.
Did your mother stay married to him?
Yes.
Wow.
In fact, they celebrated 75 years of marriage.
They're both still alive?
They died not too long ago at the age of 98.
Oh, wow, because I was going to say, are they going to see this program?
No.
It's like, oh, we didn't mean it. I'm sorry, Bernard.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyway, do you have a routine like some writers get up and write for 3 hours in the morning?
Right. Wish I did have more of
Yeah.
a routine, because I know in the way I write, I'm better if I have like a deadline, or if I have an assignment. Like when I was in college, you know, you have an assignment. You have to have it done at a certain time.
Yeah.
And I have found that when I'm on my own working, that I am better if I have that routine. Because if you're at home and you're writing, and the laundry, you hear the dryer go off,
Yeah.
you get up and you go and fold the clothes,
Right.
or you do this type of thing. So I'm still working on that, trying to.
You know, when I was in college, the only A+ I ever got in college was on a paper. It was an English paper, freshman English, and that's how they weed everybody out.
Right.
But we had this English professor who I swear looked like Natasha on Boris and Natasha. She's like skinny and this long skinny hair,
Right.
like that, and little red lips. But anyway, she looked like, you know,
Right.
we're a moose and squirrel.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
Anyway, I was writing a paper on the symbolism in the dreams of Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment.
Wow.
Okay? Big subject.
Yes.
And I put that paper off
Oh yeah.
for 6 weeks.
Oh yeah. Of course.
Until after the Andy Williams special on Sunday night. And I had to turn it in the next morning.
Oh,
you know?
dear me.
So here's what I did. I wrote the paper. I didn't have a typewriter. I wrote 20 pages longhand.
Right.
And so that was all done. And then I wrote the rough draft in pencil. And then I wrote the note cards. And then I took the note cards outside, and I back and forth on the sidewalk,
Right.
and then ran them through the flower beds that get dirty, and then spilled Coca-Cola on them
Yeah,
and
right.
stuff. And then I took a a knife and like
Yeah.
that and put a rubber band on it. So it looked like I had been
Oh,
doing
yeah.
this for a long, long time.
Oh, yeah. At least
And-
6 weeks.
Yeah. Instead of, 6
Right.
hours overnight.
Right.
And I went to class, turned it in, and I got an A+ on that
Oh,
paper.
my gosh, see?
So you're not, and
It's-
work well under pressure.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Have to do it.
Yeah, I know that. I know exactly what you mean.
So in writing this new book, so all we're waiting on the new book is the illustrations,
The illustrations. Yeah, the book's all ready except for and the illustrations, I think there are only 2 more to be finished. Illustrations they are going to be just absolutely gorgeous. The artist is
Right? Is someone
he's
here?
phenomenal. He lives in Hawaii now. His
Okay.
name is Keith Yordana, and that is one talented artist. Yeah, he's really
Well, it makes a huge difference.
yes.
And so why children's literature for you? I mean, have you thought of
Yeah.
expanding?
I have, but and I always want to, but it always ends up. I think that the children are just they're so important, and they're just the most wonderful human beings. They're still so open, and they haven't been really socialized yet into being. They're still believing in differences, and everything is so acceptable to them, and
Yeah.
I just really love writing about them and their naughtiness, but yet because they aren't really socialized and haven't been really accepted of all the societal pressures and this type of thing.
So if people want to buy your book, The Last Goose Concert, what would they do to get that?
Well, I think they can buy it on Amazon,
Okay.
and then they can also buy it from Koho Pono
That's a publisher here in Oregon.
in Oregon,
Okay.
and it's going to be an ebook that they
Good.
could get, and
You're going to do an audiobook as well?
I'm going to do an audiobook eventually
Okay,
too.
good.
In fact, we've already started the reading for the audiobook.
Okay.
So
Well, listen, they have given me the high sign, so we're going to have to ride on out of here.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's
And-
been such a pleasure.
Good, and we thank you for joining us. Join us again next time as we take another peek at the back page, and remember, we're all in this together. More the same than different. Do your best.